Brenda McGarvey. I'm with Unity Hospice. I am conducting this interview on behalf of Unity Hospice in Elgin, Illinois, and today we are interviewing Richard Love. Today is Friday, October 9th, 2015, and we are in Elgin, Illinois. The purpose of this interview is to collect the veteran experience of Richard Love. Could you state your full name, please?
Huh?
Can you state your full name?
Richard Stanley Love.
And what's your date of birth?
3/15/20.
And the branch or branches of service that you served in?
Army Air Force.
Okie doke. And the highest rank that you attained? Highest rank that you attained in the service?
Corporal. Because when I was picked up from the replacement pool by the 94th, but my bad fortune, all the sergeantcies were filled up. So I went in as a private, and then they made me a corporal in a month, and that's where I had to stay.
And I understand that your service was a bit transitional in that you started in the Army Air Corps, and because of an intelligence test they gave you.
Yeah.
Can you tell me about that?
Well, all I know is that they asked a bunch of questions, and at that time I was a draftee, and they would give an intelligence test, and I was one of them that passed. So they said, "Do you want to join the Air Force?" Well, I said yes. I didn't want to pound feet like a foot pounder. So I signed up for 3 years.
And when did you go into the Air Force? Or when did you go into the military? I think a piece of paper, I see October 14th, 1941, and you got out on August 13th, 1945.
Yeah.
I believe that's what I see on this paper here. Well,
One of these will tell me.
I got it right there.
14th of October, I went into the Air Force.
And then you got out on August 30th of 1945.
Right.
Excellent. And what war did you serve during?
Huh?
What war did you serve during?
2.
World War II. All right, so we're going to ask you a little bit of information about your background before you got into the military. Where were you born?
Chicago.
Chicago, Illinois.
But when I was 4 years old, the family moved to Michigan.
They just like that cold weather, right? What were the names of your parents and what kind of occupations did they have?
Oh boy, you got me there. My mother's name was Hilda, my father's name was Glenn. As far as his occupation, I could really never tell you. He did everything.
He worked hard, huh?
Everything but work.
Well, let me ask you this. Did you have any brothers or sisters?
Yes.
What were their names?
I got a brother Kenneth, brother Harold, and a brother Robert, and all 3 of them are dead.
Did any of them serve in the military?
All 3 of them served in World War II.
What branches of services were they in?
2 of them were Marines, and 1 was a sailor.
So you had Marines, Navy, and Army Air Corps in one family. That's interesting for sure. Now, did you enlist or were you drafted?
Originally, I was drafted, but that only lasted 3 days, because then after the test, I enlisted for 3 years in the Air Force.
Well, let me ask you this question. Do you remember getting that initial draft notice in the mail?
Oh yeah.
What was that day like?
They said report.
Did that scare you, or were you excited about it?
I was expecting it.
A sense of duty.
Yeah.
Did you you remember what you did before you left? Was there a party or going away or?
No, they just said goodbye.
One less mouth to feed today, right? Did you take a train or a bus?
A bus to Camp Grant
And Camp Grant is located,
in Illinois.
all right, I think probably near Chicago, is that right?
Huh?
I think that's near Chicago, right, Camp Grant?
Well,
Can't remember right.
it's not Chicago, it's
Outside of,
outside
sure.
Chicago.
Do you remember on that bus when you pulled into Camp Grant? Do you remember being greeted by drill instructors or?
Oh, yes.
And did they greet you with warm arms, or how did they greet you?
It gets shaved right away. That's the first thing they said.
So I guess you're in the Army now. There's a reason for that song, isn't
they
there?
let you know it too.
You know, so what did you do before you got into the military? Did you come right out of high school, or?
No, I was working.
You were working. What type of work were you doing?
I worked for Schwinn Bicycles.
Wonderful, wonderful. And how old were you when you went into the military?
21.
21. So, you know, it's a whole different world, being a civilian and being a military. For some people, it's easy to make an adjustment between a more relaxed lifestyle to a very, to drill or to camp, basic training, where it's much more regimented. Did that seem difficult to you at all to make that transition from being a civilian to being in the military and in boot camp?
No, not really. You just go along with the thing.
And do you, when you finished boot camp, did you have any training that you went to then, specialized
Oh, yes.
training? What type of training?
There's one thing. I was training. My boot camp was out at Shepard Field, Texas. I was there when the Japs hit Pearl Harbor.
Oh my goodness.
So I was already in the service.
What was it like to be in the military at that point and have that announcement?
Well, we were all in town on passes. All of a sudden the MPs come in with their vehicles and get back.
So
They made you get back into camp.
So you were
And
in
we
a high
said,
state
why?
of alert.
And they said Pearl Harbor was bombed. And the first thing that was out of our lips, where's Pearl Harbor? Never knew.
Well, because that was before Hawaii was even a state.
Yeah.
Hawaii was not a state yet, right?
Well, they were like an army base
Yeah.
there.
Right, an installation there, and you know, and that was a place that was I think a few years later did become a state, and that was the first time that something that close had happened, you know, to us, or somebody dared to bomb one of our installations.
Yeah.
Whereas now the second time being 9/11, so I would bet much of the same type of thing happened. You probably went on high alert. And people were very anxious, and we'd never been bombed on a military base before. So
No.
that must have been a unique experience at that time.
Yeah, it put us to wondering what's going to happen.
Yeah. And so Shepard Field, I know, is in the north portion of Texas. And what type of training did you receive there?
Pretty good.
What were you trained to do?
I went to school there, at Shepard Field Airforce Mechanic School. And the reason that happened is because we were taking our training in basic, and when the Japs attacked, a week later, every one of us were in the mechanic school. No, or anything else. In you go.
So you didn't get to choose your field. You were told what your field was going to be, right? And so you were trained to be mechanics on the airplanes. Well, certainly, I guess we needed our airplanes to be in order and flying.
Yeah, I graduated in the 5th class from there.
So when you finished that class at Shepard Field and you were a trained mechanic, where did you go after that?
Geiger Field, Spokane, Washington.
And what did you
To
do?
the 101st. And there was a goof up by the military. They sent most of the guys that were trained as mechanics up there. Well, they had all their mechanics, and they didn't know what to do with us. So from there, we went to Alamogordo, New Mexico.
Up and down the states.
From New Mexico, we went to Virginia. And the base wasn't even built then. So then we ended up at, what's the one? Oh boy. Fort Dex, embarkation point. And then they dropped all the mechanics off there. So then outfits that were coming through picked up 1, 2, 3, 4 here, there, 1, 2, 3, 4 there. And I had a good soft job there. I used to drive a Jeep, and when the units come in to go overseas, I would meet them at night and bring them to their quarters. Oh, that lasted for 1 year. Then I got nailed by the 94th.
And what does that mean, nailed by the 94th? What happened? They took you over at that point?
Oh yeah, they needed another mechanic. So there I go.
What type of airplanes did you work on?
B-17s.
B-17s, those are bombers, right?
Yeah.
And from there, where did you travel?
From there we went to, well, I should say the 1st or 4th in Scotland with, on the Queen Elizabeth.
So you sailed there.
And one particular thing, that ship never stopped running. You could see the smoke coming from the stacks all the time. And they were, 500-600 feet, maybe more, out in the ocean, because it had been bombed there a couple of times, and they didn't want the ship lost. So that's how it worked. We got on what they call lighters. To me, it was a big barge. They put 100 guys on it and take them to shore and come back and take another 100. We had 12,500 GIs on that ship.
So, one of the questions somebody had asked me in the past was how come people didn't fly? What was air travel like that at that time? And I guess part of it is because a ship could transport a huge amount of men, and probably air travel wasn't as sophisticated as it is now, but you had large groups of men you could transport at a time. I also heard somebody say that something that many of us don't realize is that it was a world war, and so travel in the ocean, whereas today we might travel back and forth.
Yeah.
You worry about submarines.
That brings up another subject. The Queen Elizabeth went across by itself with 12,500 men on it.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
Well, the German submarines couldn't catch it.
Because it's
too fast.
Oh, I did not realize that. Wonderful. Yeah. So that wasn't so much a worry with that. I hear a lot of people had traveled on the Queen Elizabeth, so she must have made a lot of travels back and forth across the seas. Was this your first time going to a foreign country when you landed in Scotland? And what was that experience like?
All right, but I kept looking over the rail. I figured, boy, that's a long way down.
Well, what was the country of Scotland like?
Huh?
How was Scotland? What was the country like there?
I like Scotland
What was it that you liked about Scotland?
because I'm part Scotch. That's why.
Oh, good. That must have been very wonderful to be able to visit your homeland.
Yeah, I'm a
too.
French, Scotch, and English.
Now, how long were you in Scotland?
Oh, just time to get through it.
Where did you go from there?
Later on, I went to Scotland 3 different times.
Oh, you must have really enjoyed it.
Oh yeah, I got a photograph in my room that I had in kilts.
Oh, well, you're gonna have to take us down and show us after the filming. So where did you go from Scotland?
They took us to England to, no, not Bury St. Edmunds. Yes, Bury St. Edmunds. And then after a month, they made a switch, and we went to oh boy, what's the name of it? I can't even think of the name.
How long were you in England?
2 years.
So most of your, pretty well, the rest of your career was in England. So 2 years meant you were away from home that long. You didn't get to, did you get to go back home at all during that 2 years?
No,
or?
I never got a leave.
So you're pretty
Not
much,
a leave.
when you left the States, it was a couple of years before you got to see your family again. Then.
4 years.
4 years. Did you have the ability to communicate with them in any way? Write letters, or how did you communicate back home?
Letters.
You got to write letters back and forth, and so did in England.
Oh, I know what I wanted to say.
For sure.
We were at Earl's Cone, and they switched us with a light bomber outfit who was at Bury St. Edmunds, because the base was bigger and they didn't need it, so they switched them back to the smaller base, and we went to Bury St. Edmunds, and that's where we stayed.
What were some of the experiences you had in England? Memorable experiences?
Well, I had to get around. Once in a, you get a pass, go to London, Covent Gardens. That's the dance hall. I always kid Alex, because she's from England. I tell her, "Are we going to Covent Gardens tonight?" She says, "Yeah."
So you got to do a lot of dancing in your off time then?
Yeah, but we only got, passes or furloughs every so often. That's how come I got to Scotland 3 times.
Oh, so on your furlough, while you were in the military, you were able to go to Scotland? Very good. And so what were the people like in England?
In Scotland, very good.
In Scotland?
English, not so good sometimes. When we came there, the older English people said to us, "Oh, you're from the colonies, huh?" Because the Canadians were coming in, the soldiers from Australia, New Zealand, all of them were coming into England, and when we came, they thought we were part of their colonies.
So you were also still working on B-17s at that time?
Huh?
You were still working on B-17s at that time?
No, I never got, not until we got to Bury St. Edmunds.
Okay, then you were working on, the airplane was B-17?
Yeah.
Did you have any, worries about, air raids or air drills or?
Yes. Buzz bombs.
Tell me about the buzz bombs.
Buzz bomb. Well, the Germans were smart. when it was foggy, you could bet your good boots they're gonna come over. The bombs will be coming over. And when the noise stopped, you better be in the hole somewhere, otherwise it may land right near you and that'd be the end of you.
And somebody, a daughter of a veteran said, oh, something about when you heard him, that's when you need to run, and he said, when you hear him, you're dead. You know,
Yeah.
so why did they call them buzz bombs?
Huh?
Why did they call them buzz bombs?
Because they were, oh, I don't know how to describe it. They were automatic.
They
you know,
sounded like a buzz.
and they were on some kind of gyro. And when they reached a certain point, they pointed towards the earth. And then they, 5 to 10 seconds after that, you better be hiding in a hole.
So you really, sometimes people say, I wasn't on the combat line, but if you were in England, you were on a combat line, just basically because you had the fear of being bombed at any moment, and the German and English citizens as well.
They had the V2s too, but you couldn't do anything about those. They travel at 600 miles an hour. Big holes in the ground when they come out.
There's no moving at that point, yeah.
No.
So did you make any friends when you were, did you make any friends when you were in the military?
Yeah.
That you remember?
All of our guys, but all the guys, all your mechanics and we got servicemen working on the planes, you all became friends, but I've never seen anybody since.
I know they say sometimes it's a unique experience in the military because when you move, you usually have family with you, but servicemen, when they leave home, all of them have nobody, and so you have only each other. So you bonded pretty good with people in the military while you were in the military.
Oh yeah.
But you haven't seen anybody since that.
No, not since the war ended.
So how did you get back to the States?
Flew back.
You flew back. Where did you land?
Well, we started off, how it worked out was they took the high point men and they divided them up and took so many on each bomber, ground troops. And that's how come this got fouled up at Fort Sheridan. Because I came home with this outfit, but I never served with it.
And we'll talk about that some more towards the end. But you know what, let's talk about that now. So you have an honorable discharge paper that I'm going to show to the camera. Is that okay? I'm going to show the front of this. And you said there was
this is the one you want to see.
And I think we said they were both kind of the same thing. But
no, that's a short term.
I gotcha.
That's the one that I went from being, how do you say it?
From the Army Air Corps to the Air Force.
From the draftee into the Air Force.
From the Army Air Corps to the Air Force.
This is only good for
3 days?
3 days.
And one of the other things you noted was that on here they say that you were on this form that I just showed. It says that you were the 487th bomb group, but that's not right. That was a mistake. And what was the squadron you were with? The 94th, is that right?
94th Bomb Group, 410th Bomb Squadron.
We're going to get that right for the recording. How's
3rd
that
Air
sound?
Division, Europe.
And where did you land at in the States?
Huh?
Where did you land in the States?
Oh, well, coming home, we went from England to Scotland to Iceland to Goose Bay, Labrador to Bradley Field, Connecticut. Then they took the planes away and give us the trains to ride.
Do you remember what it was like when you were back on American soil?
Yeah, we were happy, if that's what you mean.
Yeah, it felt good to be back in the States.
But Could have been worse.
So when you got back to the States then, did you, were you out, they discharged you then and you were out of the military? Or did you have more
let's see.
time in the military?
We come back, I wasn't back very long. I went to Camp Grant, and from Camp Grant they shipped us up to Fort Sheridan. That's where I got the
The messed up discharge.
discharge.
Now, do you remember the day that you came back home? Do you remember seeing your family when you got back home?
Yeah, but I don't remember the day.
Oh, no. I just the experience. Were they excited to have you back home?
Yeah. My wife was happy to see me, I'll tell you.
Oh, so you were married prior. So you were gone for 3 years away from your wife.
That was the shortest honeymoon anybody ever had.
Now that's a good wife. That's a good wife. She waited for you for 3 years. God bless her for that. So you, when you got back to the States, now you're coming out of a situation where you dealt with life or death matters. You've learned about, being in a different country, and you're becoming a civilian. Did you have any troubles making the adjustment from military life to civilian life at all?
No, because I had worked for Swin Bikes, and I went there, and they took me right back.
Wonderful.
Took me back.
Where did you spend the rest of your life as far as careers?
Huh?
What type of jobs did you have the rest of
Oh,
your life?
later I became a dispatcher for Elmer Chicago Stone. I started out as dispatching concrete pipe, anything from 6-inch up to 96-inch. And it was my job, when those trucks come in, I loaded them accordingly. I had them loaded by the loaders. And I had to keep it at 72.8. If you went over that and they got caught, you got hell for you. So, and then all those years, I never never had one caught
Now let me
by the
ask,
police.
have you belonged to any military organizations like the VFW?
Yeah, the VFW 2298, 1903, and it was the AMVETS, I think, was a 92.
And was
But
that?
I'm not in the AMVETS anymore.
Are you still in the VFW?
Yeah.
And has that been a very good support for you as well, or for military as well, the VFW?
Yep.
Well, let me ask you this as well. There may be some of your future generations, maybe your great-grandkids that have a chance to see this in the future, since this is going to go online and people can see this for generations to come. Is there anything that you would like to say to them today?
I don't know what to say. I got 9 of them.
Nine grandkids?
Great-grandchildren.
Oh my goodness gracious, wonderful. Now
And I got 8 grandchildren.
has being in the military, everybody has an idea about whether we should be at war or not. And since you have been in the military, since you have experienced war, has that changed how you feel at all about war or the military in general?
Yes, it's an awful thing to be in. There's nothing to be happy about a war. I don't care what people say.
And do you have any advice at all for young men or women that might be considering going in the military? Do you have any advice for if a young man or woman is trying to decide whether or not to go in the military?
No, I wouldn't advise anybody to do anything. They got their own judgment. That's the way it is.
Wonderful. So let me ask you this. Is there anything today that we have not talked about that you feel like you would like to talk about a little bit more about your experiences?
Well, we were 20 miles, we were stationed 20 miles from the English Channel. And on D-Day, the call came through, and boy, we were out there getting those bombers loaded, and over they went.
What was that like, D-Day?
Busy.
There was a lot going on at that
Yeah.
time, a lot of, did you get how did you know that D-Day was happening? Did you get any letters from the president or your squadron?
No, because those were short runs for the bombers. When they come back, you know, to refuel and reload, they talked to us and they said, hey, we're in it.
So you had to be there working nonstop
Oh, yeah,
to support
yeah.
that air crew. So that was a very, sounds like it was a very memorable experience for you as well. But I'd like to say, on behalf of Unity Hospice, we would like to thank you so much for your service and thank you for sharing your story with us. Thank you.
Oh yes, it's nice.